Meet Kevin Johnson has a fascinating structure. Although we've had episodes in the past that are solely devoted to exploring the past, but no episode has a structure like this. First of all, it has a framing device as a story.
You just start from the beginning and explain how you came to be on this boat.
This is the only time the show uses this type of framing device, where a character is telling the story while the audience is getting the story told visually.
Do you want to hear this or not, Mr. Lovett? It's been 84 years, and I can still smell the fresh paint. Titanic was called the Ship of Dreams. And it was. It really was.
After Saeed's question to Michael, he's forced to tell them his story, and the show implies that everything in the flashback Michael told Saeed and Desmond. Second of all, the episode has a chiastic structure. It's a narrative motif, which means for our case that it has an onion ring composition. The writer Person Moore has studied this chiastic structure and figured out that the entire dialogue in this scene from season 1 has this type of fascinating structure, which really highlights how well written this episode is.
Thirsty? Hungry? Waiting to be rescued?
I can't.
Why can't you?
Because I'm not a leader.
Why are you out here, Jack?
I think I'm going crazy. Chasing something. Someone.
The White Rabbit. Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah. Wonderland, because who I'm chasing, he's not there.
But you see him?
Yes. But he's not there. I'd call it a hallucination.
I'm an ordinary man, Jack. Meat and potatoes. I live in the real world. I'm not a big believer in magic. But this place is different. It's special. The others don't want to talk about it because it scares them. But we all know it. We all feel it. Is your White Rabbit a hallucination? Probably. But what if everything that happened here happened for a reason? What if this person that you're chasing is really here?
That's impossible.
Even if it is, let's say it's not.
And what happens when I catch him?
I don't know. But I've looked into the eye of this island, and what I saw was beautiful.
Wait, where are you going?
To find some more water?
I'll come with you.
No, you need to finish what you started.
Why?
Because a leader can't lead until he knows where he's going.
I love that the heart of the chiasmus is that the island is magical. It reverses, but every reversal has a twist. For this episode we have on the island, Locke's group at night. Then you have the freighter in the present, with a dramatic scene with Captain Galt. Then you have the suicide attempt. Then you have contact with Walt. Suicide attempt again in the alleyway. Then you have the scene with Tom. And then you get to the onion ring.
The island won't let you.
What'd you say?
No matter how bad you want to, no matter how many different ways you try, it won't happen.
In the middle of the episode, the island won't let you die, and the reveal of Flight 815 being found. This is the chiasmus, and we're going backwards from this point.
Did the bullet bounce off your skull, or did the gun just jam on you?
Back to Tom, then to the suicide attempt, then with contact with Walt, although this is reversed, it's Ben this time. Then you have the present with the freighter and the dramatic scene with Captain Galt, And then we go back to the outer layer of the onion, which is Locke's group, this time not during the night, but during the day. And this is not a quiet scene, but a hectic one. And we also get other things on each side of the onion, like the Libby appearances. Let's do this all chronologically. Ben sends Michael away on the bearing of 325.
Yeah, I can drive a boat.
Good. Then you're going to take this boat and follow a compass bearing of 325. And if you do that exactly, you and your son will find rescue.
However, he tells him this before the discharge at the Swan Station. Is it possible that the discharge caused the exit bearing to slightly change from 325 to 305? Because in season 4 they stick to 305 to come and go safely through the island with both the chopper and the Zodiac. A slight deviation might cause time skips, such as the Doctor's body floating back in time or the chopper arriving on the freighter ahead of time. You can still enter and leave the island if you're slightly off. And this is what I think happened to Michael and Walt. When you watch the show, it feels like Michael and Walt has been gone for a long time. We last saw them 2 seasons ago, but in terms of days on the island, if we're going by the Lostpedia timeline, they left on day 67. And the season 3 episode Catch 22, when Naomi, one of the freighter people, arrive on the island, is just 18 days later. It's quite a short time, especially since they have to travel in the Pacific Ocean in this old tub. A cargo ship takes 25 days from Sydney to Los Angeles. Granted, the island is moving, so it could be further up, closer to North America. In less than 3 weeks, we will have Michael and Walt leaving the island, sailing on the Pacific Ocean, arriving on a new island, selling the boat, hopping a cargo ship, arrive to the US, land in New York. Then you have Michael to become suicidal, recovering from a car crash, traveling to Fiji, and sailing on the Pacific Ocean, all before Naomi ends up on the island in the span of 18 days. So I'm proposing a theory that there was a time skip backwards when Michael and Walt left. This video analysis will be very much my own theory of what happened and my interpretation of the timeline. So they leave the island on November 27th, but by passing the barrier, they end up on, let's say, a month prior, on October the 30th. They're on the sea for a couple of days. I think Ben would have left some food in the boat for them. They reach an island with people, so maybe November 1st. A trip with a cargo ship takes a long time. Let's say the island has moved and they are over here in the North Pacific, just to shorten the cargo trip a bit. I was thinking of one of the Mexican islands, but since it needs to be an island that ferries directly to the US, we have to rule them out. What island has cargo ships that often go to and from the US? It's the obvious answer, Hawaii. It's a chain of several islands, so perhaps Michael and Walt wound up on one of these other islands instead of Oahu. They would sell the boat and then immediately hop a cargo ship that is going towards the States. Let's say that they depart the island later in the day, on November 1st. It takes a week with a cargo ship from Maui to California, so it is November 8th by the time they reach mainland US. There is a possibility that Michael had a bank card or something that he used to order plane tickets back to his New York apartment, since the ship would have arrived on the west coast and Michael lives on the east coast. And now I want to add the conundrum of Tom Friendly. He was the next one to leave the island. He left the island at the earliest on December 4th and would be back again a week later, which is pretty crazy. So I think that he left the island with a submarine heading on bearing 325, and just like Michael, found himself off in the real world 1 month back in time, giving himself much more time to do his research, as well as indulge himself. I think he did the same thing as Juliet with having a pit stop at Herarat Aviation Airport. So the sub went there and he chartered a plane. In my headcanon, Isabel is with him, since she was never seen on the island after the episode Stranger in a Strange Land. During this time, another man is working. Charles Widmore. His plan is to orchestrate the fake Oceanic Flight 815. It involves getting the plane, placing the bodies in there, and then placing it at the bottom of the ocean. The plane and the ship that dropped it into the Sunda Trench is okay to figure out. In fact, it's almost reminiscent to the Lost crew. Even the price tag is not too far from the real truth of them purchasing the Lockheed plane that was later shipped to Hawaii.
Talking, it was like, no, JJ wants a wide body. It's coming from Australia. A couple of days later, I bought an L-1011.
This is one of the few places in the world where they store old airplanes. Well, this is a Lockheed L-1011 that's been retired. A very fine passenger airplane that became obsolete, of course.
Widmore could totally do all of that, and he had much more money than the lost crew. But there's something gruesome and odd about this whole plan.
That's the cemetery in Thailand where Widmore dug up the 300-odd corpses he needed.
There's hardly any cemeteries in Thailand, since the majority of the population are cremated, per the Buddhist tradition. The cemeteries that do exist are grand and beautifully decorated, not remotely anything like the picture that was taken. The other factor is the exhumation, digging up the bodies. That's a whole different issue. Widmore's team need to find over 300 bodies that are not decayed, and then put clothes on at least one of them, the pilot of the plane, bringing them inside this fake plane, seating them all in their seats, and then shipping this plane full of stinking all dead, rotten bodies, and then lowering down thousands of kilometers into the Sunda Trench. It's not only a horrible crime, but it seems almost impossible. The exhumation is a thorough process, involving a lot of people, so if Widmore did it, he had to do it illegally, and without any permissions from any cemeteries. Widmore would also need to know the dates of all 300 people that are in the graves on when and how they died, because every single body would be different, and he needed all the bodies to be in the same state when the ROVs would go into the plane and look at the bodies with their video cameras. Dead bodies usually start to decay immediately after death, and in Widmore's case you're taking a dead body through various temperatures and conditions, not to mention the horrid smell. Bodies decompose in various speeds, and if it's not an official graveyard and more like a dump with tons of bodies, then it's hard to know how decomposed every dead body is, since that depends on a lot of factors. From the coffin to the body size, presence of insects, oxygen levels, pH levels, temperature, and much more. It's too much of a risk. And experts would definitely see that these bodies didn't die at impact in the water. They've been decayed and decomposed through various stages, so something is off. There could have been a note pinned to this document saying graveyard in Thailand, and it could have been a proposal or idea sent to Widmore or by Widmore himself on how to solve the body issue. Let's say that Widmore had a connection in Thailand that would help him load bodies into a plane and sink into the ocean, which could explain why the document would be written like that. The picture only shows 10 graves. I guess it's possible, just very uncommon, to find a grave spot with 10 graves in Thailand. My theory is that he could have tested it with this gravesite, which shows only 10 graves, taking the bodies out of them and then placing them in a container, then soaking these bodies in water and saw how they would decompose. Would it be a success or not? Personally, I prefer to think that Widmore tested out the theory of digging up the bodies, and this photo is either from a potentially illegal mass grave in Thailand or just from a different country. They might have traveled to Thailand to test the 10 corpses and then concluded that this mission is too impossible to do, so I'm much more comfortable with the idea of Widmore construction, molding fake bodies that would mimic the way bodies decompose over time in the ocean, with no form of DNA, instead of the other option. So in my opinion, the corpses are all fake, dummies that were dressed and would decompose in water normally like all other submerged bodies, and not like bodies that have been through various stages of decomposition. After this is done, we have the alternate reality game Find 815 with the Christian one departing from Jakarta. Let's get back to Michael and Walt. Michael and Walt have arrived back home in New York. In this shot we see that they live at Chambers Street. They will spend some time together until Michael tells him the truth. By now, Walt leaves and stays with his grandmother. She tells Michael that he was gone for 2 months.
So until you can explain to me where you were for over 2 months and what happened.
So I think that Walt came to his grandmother on, let's say, November the 24th. So it's over 2 months since the crash. Let's add some additional days for Michael to become severely depressed and consider suicide. What about November 27th? The day he tries to kill himself would actually be the day he left the island. New York puts up Christmas decorations at the end of November, so that fits too. Let's get back to Widmore. After he has successfully organized the fake wreckage and placed it on the ship, I believe that the ship has traveled from Thailand, as I proposed earlier, from Bangkok, and then traveled down south, passing Malaysia, Singapore, and then through this pass over here before it dropped the plane in the Sunda Trench. Now we have the timeline of the papers. a guy named Felix was going to deliver these documents to Widmore.
He's on his way to deliver something to a guy named Widmore.
Deliver what?
A bunch of papers, photos, pictures of empty graves. A purchase order for an old airplane.
I think it's a fair deduction that Widmore would want these documents to keep or destroy incriminating evidence. Or maybe Felix acquired them and wanted to blackmail Widmore. Whatever his motivations were, he wound up dead. And then someone would get these documents from Felix. Personally, I like the idea that there was a lot of turmoil that would eventually lead to this event in this warehouse.
This is Charles Widmore.
Was this the guy, the one who killed Felix? If the body of Felix is located at a restaurant in California, then this event probably happened in California. I've previously mentioned that Tom is the one who took the Red Sox tape from the hideout island into the real world. So is that Tom filming this? And he got away with the documents and the tape and then fled to New York. While in California, Widmore has been starting to plan the freighter mission. Abaddon and Naomi does a lot of the work. There's also some other work to be done. Someone from the others have been searching for Anthony Cooper. This might be why they originally went to California at first. Then they traveled to Tallahassee after they finally found where Anthony Cooper was located. Let's get back to Michael. After a week at the hospital, he's recovered so well that he doesn't need a neck brace or crutches when he visits Walt. Let's say this happens on December 4th. This is 6 days before Tom is supposed to be on the island, so he still has some time. That same night he was at his mother's place. He goes to a shop, trades the watch for a gun, and meets Tom in the alleyway. He goes home and then tries to kill himself. This is now the day of the news announcement of the wreckage being discovered.
The wreckage of Oceanic Flight 815 has been found. This footage confirms the airplane did in fact crash at sea. At these tremendous depths, there's little hope of recovering any remains.
A lot of characters experience this news broadcast, even Anthony Cooper, who is in Tallahassee. Michael heads to the Hotel Earl, to the penthouse. Tom shows him the documents that Felix originally had. He says the freighter leaves in a couple of days, so Michael agrees on the mission. He takes a plane to Fiji. Another traveler is Charles Widmore, who has now gone to Essex in Massachusetts to visit Daniel Faraday. And then a lot of characters are moving around. Frank from Bahamas, Miles and Naomi from California, Charlotte from Tunisia, Kimi from Vegas, Omar from Florida, and all the rest. When Tom calls from the penthouse, I'd say that's the last day he's in New York. Also great work, crew. It is nighttime when he calls and daytime in Fiji, as it should be. Too many movies and TV shows can't even see the continuity errors of things happening at the same time, but the time zones make it nighttime someplace and daytime somewhere else.
Call control. Code red.
Nick.
Bill.
The freighter departs from its port in Fiji and starts heading to Widmore's coordinates of the island. Michael is given this room on the lower deck and gets to know another deckhand by the name of Jeff.
My name is Jeff.
He might be given a room somewhere here as well. Tom will now travel either directly to the Herat Aviation Airport or he will make a pit stop to Tallahassee. I think he will go straight to the place where they have their own airport and then meet up with others. Someone orchestrated a car crash in Tallahassee.
I'm driving down I-10 through Tallahassee when bam, somebody slams into the back of my car. I go right into the divider at 70 miles an hour. The next thing I know, the paramedics are strapping me to a gurney, stuffing me in the back of an ambulance, and one of them actually smiles at me as he pops the IV in my arm. And then, nothing. Just black.
He will now be flown and then placed on the sub. The freighter has been sailing for a while. Frank and Naomi are on deck and they quarrel. She goes back inside. Frank and Michael talk.
Frank Lapidus, chopper pilot.
Evan Johnson, deckhand.
Later, Michael will be washing something on deck, and then hear Kimi and the guys shooting at things. Michael heads back inside, down the hallway, then down the stairs that go to the lower deck, then down the hallway and back to his room where he opens up the box with the bomb. He goes back in the hallway, enter the engine room from here, where he will open it up. He hears the whispers, this time off the island, and then sees Libby for a brief second. Now we've come to December 10th. Tom arrives on the island with Anthony Cooper. Ben also learns that there are innocent people on board, such as the scientists, so he calls Michael on the freighter. On the island, this is the evening before Locke blows up the sub. Minkowski answers the call and then walks down to the main deck, then down again to the lower deck.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but you got a call.
A call?
Yeah, from the mainland. They patched it through to the radio room.
They will both head down the corridor, up the stairs, down yet another corridor on the main deck, then up another set of stairs before entering the communications room on the upper deck. Michael talks to Ben.
Then consider yourself one of the good guys.
Now to the present. At the barracks they have a meeting and everyone's invited. Although we don't get any shots of the extras, they are also present, since we see them chat in the background. On the freighter, a couple of people try to leave the boat. Captain Walt stops them. Michael is here. The captain goes back to his office. The meeting at the barracks is over. Locke takes Miles outside. Ben tells Danielle, Carl and Alex about the temple, and we get a new map. In this map we see that the barracks are not too far from the temple. Some mappers have placed the temple on different places on the island. The problem with this map is the bay of water over here, so I've made it so that it connects on this side. That is why there's a slight discrepancy between the resource map and Ben's map, but I think we can be a little bit loose on that, enhance the bay over here, the mountains over here are over here, so I think the map fits. It's the next day. Saeed and Desmond head to the engine room. Michael sends a crew member to the supply room, and then Michael tells the story we've seen on screen. This guy Jeff sure took his time to find the pressure valve. What happened to him? We know that there are additional doors to the other side of the hallway based on the movements by Jin and Desmond in this season finale. So maybe he was distracted by something. Maybe this guy over here, one of Kimi's friends, was talking about the C4 and Jeff eavesdropped, heard this and then got knocked out by this guy. Or maybe Jeff had some explosive diarrhea. Point is that it took him a while to come back, if he ever did, because we don't see him anymore on the ship. Saeed and Desmond take Michael up the stairs, through the hallway, and then up yet another staircase into Captain Galt's office. They enter a lush palm grove area. Carl is killed, then Danielle. Thanks for watching this big analysis. Next week will also be a different episode, because in real life Lost had to be on a break due to the writer's strike. Next week will be a bonus episode in the same realm as the one I did for Lost Fan 108 if you haven't seen that one. This one will be about the writer's strike and the effect it had before we return to Season 4's episode The Shape of Things to Come the week after.